It began, as such things often do, with a dare. Oakwood Cemetery had stood on the outskirts of Briar Hollow for over a century, its wrought iron gates looming like the clenched jaws of some slumbering beast. By day, it was a sanctuary of quiet mourning. By night, it was something else entirely. Emma Hartley, ever the skeptic, was the first to laugh at the stories. The Wraith, they called it, a shadowy figure said to haunt the graveyard, whispering secrets no living soul was meant to hear. It was said the Wraith would appear to those who carried their own secrets, drawing them into the cemetery's depths and leaving behind only echoes. "I'll prove it's just a story," Emma declared, her voice cutting through the hesitant murmurs of her friends gathered around the campfire. The flickering flames cast jagged shadows across her determined face. "Emma, don't," Sam whispered, his voice trembling. He glanced nervously toward the cemetery in the distance, its gates barely visible through the trees. "It's not worth it." "Since when do you believe in ghost stories?" She shot back, grabbing her flashlight. Emma's best friend Lily touched her arm. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "It's just people talk about hearing things and seeing things. Just stay here." But Emma was already on her feet, her resolve unshaken. "I'll be back in 20 minutes. Try not to scare yourselves while I'm gone." With that, she turned toward the cemetery, her steps crunching on the dry autumn leaves. The gates creaked as Emma pushed them open, and an icy wind wrapped itself around her, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decay. She swallowed hard, telling herself it was just a trick of the atmosphere. Her flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, illuminating weathered headstones and statues draped in moss. As she ventured deeper, the air grew heavier, each breath an effort. Then she heard it. A faint whisper, indistinct yet undeniably there. She swung the flashlight in the direction of the sound, her pulse quickening. "Hello?" she called, her voice wavering. The whisper grew louder, words forming at the edge of comprehension. "Tell me," it said, the voice neither male nor female, young nor old. "What do you hide?" Emma's heart raced as she turned in circles, trying to pinpoint the source. Shadows seemed to shift and stretch toward her, and the headstones glimmered faintly as if weeping dew. She felt it before she saw it. A presence, cold and oppressive, rising behind her like a storm cloud. She spun around, and there it stood. The Wraith. A figure shrouded in black, its face obscured by a veil that seemed to ripple like smoke. It tilted its head as though studying her, its whispers now a low hum vibrating through her bones. "Your secret," it murmured. "Give it to me." Emma stumbled back, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Her secret. A secret she had buried so deeply, even she barely acknowledged it. "I don't know what you're talking about," she yelled, but the Wraith advanced, the hum growing louder. Then, as abruptly as it had appeared, it was gone. Emma was left standing alone among the gravestones, the silence deafening. She turned and ran, her breath hitching as she burst through the gates and back into the firelight where her friends waited. But when they saw her face, pale and tear-streaked, none of them laughed. "What happened?" Lily asked, gripping Emma's shoulders. Emma shook her head, unable to form the words. Somewhere in the distance, Oakwood Cemetery stood silent and watching, its secrets still waiting to be unearthed. For days after her encounter in Oakwood Cemetery, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Shadows seemed darker, Movements flickered just beyond her periphery, and the quiet hum of the Wraith's voice echoed in her dreams. She didn't tell her friends what had happened, but they could tell something had changed. "You haven't been yourself," Lily said one afternoon, her voice tinged with concern. They were sitting in the school library, a history textbook open between them. "Ever since that night." "I'm fine," Emma replied too quickly, her eyes fixed on the page, though she hadn't absorbed a word. Sam, who was slouched in the chair across from them, spoke up. "You're not fine. You've been jumpy, distracted. Whatever happened in that cemetery, it messed you up." Emma's jaw tightened. "I said I'm fine," she snapped, slamming the book shut. The librarian glared at them, but Emma didn't care. She gathered her things and stormed out, leaving Lily and Sam exchanging worried glances. That night, alone in her room, Emma replayed the events in her mind. The Wraith's words haunted her. "What do you hide?" She clenched her fists, trying to push the memory away, but it was no use. She had a secret, one she'd kept buried for years, and the Wraith had somehow sensed it. The air in her room grew colder, and Emma's breath fogged before her. She froze as a faint whisper reached her ears, coming from the corner where her closet door stood ajar. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You're not real." But the whisper persisted, rising in pitch until it became a low growl. The closet door creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness. Emma grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she called Lily. "Emma, it's late," Lily answered, her voice groggy. "It's here," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what it wants, but it's here. Stay where you are. I'm coming over." By the time Lily arrived, Emma was sitting on her bed, her knees drawn to her chest. The room was deathly quiet, the oppressive chill lingering. "What's going on?" Lily asked, closing the door behind her. "It's the Wraith," Emma said, her voice breaking. "I don't know how, but it's following me. It wants something. My secret." Lily's face paled, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What secret?" Emma hesitated, tears brimming in her eyes. "When I was 10, I found something in the woods. A locket. It belonged to Mary Langford, the girl who went missing years ago." Lily's breath caught. "You mean the Mary Langford? The girl they never found?" Emma nodded. "I kept the locket. I didn't tell anyone because I was scared. But now..." She trailed off, the whisper returning, soft but insistent. Lily grabbed Emma's hand. "We have to go back to the cemetery. I think it wants you to face what you've been hiding." "No," Emma recoiled, her heart pounding. "I can't go back there." "We don't have a choice," Lily said firmly. "If it's after you, it's not going to stop until you give it what it wants." Reluctantly, Emma agreed. The two girls left the house, the cold night air biting at their skin as they made their way to Oakwood Cemetery. The iron gates loomed ahead, more menacing than ever. As they stepped inside, the air grew thick, and the hum began again, vibrating through the earth beneath their feet. Emma clutched the locket she had stuffed in her pocket, her pulse racing. The Wraith was waiting. The cemetery was shrouded in a mist that clung to the ground like an unspoken warning. The moment Emma and Lily crossed the gates, the air grew colder, pressing against their skin like icy hands. The hum was louder now, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the ground itself. "Do you feel that?" Lily whispered, gripping Emma's arm. Emma nodded, unable to speak. The locket in her pocket felt heavier with every step, as though it were dragging her towards something inevitable. The Wraith's presence was palpable, its unseen gaze weighing on them. They followed the twisting paths through the headstones until they reached the heart of the cemetery. The moon cast an eerie glow over the clearing, illuminating a weathered mausoleum at its center. The hum crescendoed, and Emma's knees buckled. "It's here," she said, her voice trembling. From the shadows the Wraith emerged. Its form was fluid, shifting between solid and ethereal, its veil obscuring a face that seemed both there and not. "You return," it said, its voice a chorus of whispers. "You bring what you hide." Emma pulled the locket from her pocket, her hands shaking. "This is what you want, isn't it?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Take it and leave me alone." The Wraith tilted its head, the motion slow and deliberate. "Not enough," it said. "The truth must be spoken. Only then will it end." "What truth?" Lily asked, stepping forward. "What does she have to say?" The Wraith's form flickered, and the shadows around it deepened. "Speak of the day the girl was lost," it intoned. Emma's breath hitched. She clenched the locket tightly, the memories flooding back. "I was in the woods," she began, her voice barely audible. "I saw her, Mary Langford. She was running, like she was scared of something. I didn't know what to do, so I hid." The Wraith loomed closer, its whispers growing louder. "And?" Tears streamed down Emma's face. "She dropped the locket. I picked it up, but I didn't follow her. I was too scared. She kept running, and I never saw her again." The ground beneath them seemed to tremble as the Wraith extended a shadowy hand. "The locket holds her memory, but your silence buried her fate." Emma sobbed, the weight of her guilt crashing over her. "I didn't know what to do. I was just a kid." "Your silence was her shroud," the Wraith whispered. "Now, you must set her free." Lily stepped closer, her own fear evident, but overshadowed by her determination. "How does she do that?" The Wraith turned its veiled face toward Lily. "The truth must be spoken where it began." Emma's heart sank. "The woods," she whispered. They left Emma's house together, making their way once again to the cemetery. The familiar iron gates, now a portal to their shared fate. The air felt tense, oppressive, as if the very ground beneath them knew what was about to happen. This time, the Wraith was waiting. Its presence was unmistakable. A void in the shape of a figure, its whispers curling through the air like smoke. "You return," it said, its voice a blend of many, now clearer than before. "But your silence is unbroken. The burden is not yet shared." Emma stepped forward, the locket in her hand, now cold and heavy. "We're here to end this, to break the cycle," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. The Wraith's form flickered, its essence warping like shadows at dusk. "You think the silence can be broken?" it hissed. "You think you can stop the echoes?" "We can," Lily said, her voice ringing with certainty. By facing it, by speaking the truth, together. The wraith lunged, its form shifting into a writhing mass of shadows. But this time, Emma stood firm. "The truth is louder than your whispers," she declared, holding up the locket. In that moment, the wraith let out a final, guttural cry, its form dissipating into the night air as the locket glowed with an ethereal light. The graveyard fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as the echoes of the past finally faded. As the first light of dawn touched the cemetery, Emma, Lily, and Sam stood together. The wraith was gone, and the silence it had held over them was broken, replaced by the calm stillness of a new day. And in the distance, somewhere among the trees, the birds began to sing once more.